more for you, you feel it. You know it. This is your life, and it's time to go from contender to champion. This is the show. John Madsen.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, John Madsen. This is the show. As always, thank you so much for being here. I so much appreciate your support. I appreciate your direct messages on Instagram. I appreciate your questions, and it's my hope to inspire as many people as possible through this podcast, through this show, and help them take their lives to the next level. A lot of what we talk about here is fitness, but for all of you who have been with me on this journey, you know that I'm super interested in helping people take their lives to the next level. Fitness is just a tool. Fitness is a starting point. Fitness is a jump off point, because it's really hard to excel in other areas if you feel bad about yourself. And it's really hard to feel good about yourself if every time you wake up and you look in the mirror, you're unhappy with the reflection. Now, I say that carefully because there's so many examples of people who have incredible bodies, but who aren't fulfilled. And there's so many people who are fulfilled who don't have a six-pack. And so it's not that I think you have to be in incredible shape to take your life to the next level, to be fulfilled. I think for the most part, most of us fit somewhere in the middle of those two extreme spectrums. If we don't feel good about ourselves, if we look in the mirror and we're not happy with the progress, we feel sluggish, we don't exude energy, our fitness level is suffering, it's usually going to bleed into other areas of life. On the contrary, if you wake up in the morning and you've kept your promises to yourself by making it to the gym, by eating the foods that you should be eating, by doing things that are hard, you create that confidence. And we're going to talk about confidence here in a second, but you look at that reflection, you're proud of yourself. When you're proud of yourself, amazing things happen in other areas of your life. So today I want to talk about something that's going to be truly helpful for you. It's going to be something that you can remember. I've broken it down into 4 C's. I call this the core 4, and this is something that I teach all of my clients as soon as they join one of my coaching programs. So to me, I want to help people cultivate a championship mindset, not only around fitness, but around their relationships, around their work or their business, and teach them how to bring that championship mindset into their everyday life. This isn't just about fitness. And the way I've been able to do this, I've created a framework with 4 letter C's. And we're going to go over all of them. I'll just tell you what they are right now. So our core 4 to help cultivate that championship mindset are these. Number 1, courage. And we're going to go a little bit in depth into all of these. Number 2, consistency. Number 3, confidence. And number 4, competition. And I know I've spoke about this in previous episodes, but I want to really dive into the core 4 today because it's super, super important. Without courage, the first C, there is no success. It's impossible to create the success that you want if you don't have courage. The interesting thing about courage is that it doesn't exist without vulnerability. I didn't realize this until I watched this Netflix documentary with Brene Brown. Incredible. I think it's called The Call to Courage. If you haven't watched it, go watch it. Send me a DM after you do. Let me know how it made you feel. But usually, and I was probably one of these people, unenlightened persons who believed that courage and vulnerability existed on opposite ends of the spectrum. She put it so eloquently, and it literally was a paradigm shift to me, that you cannot be courageous without vulnerability. And instantaneously, when you hear, or when I heard the word vulnerability, I kept thinking sob story, victim, blah, blah, blah. And for whatever reason, my brain goes there or went there when I heard this word. So I had this negative connotation with vulnerability. I didn't want any vulnerability. I talk about the 5 M's of manhood. I want to be strong and powerful. Vulnerability had no place in my definition of myself. And then I realized through watching this documentary that that simply wasn't true. Every time that I put myself out there and I went for my dreams and I was uncertain about the outcome, I realized that I was vulnerable because there was a chance of failure. When I tried out for the high school basketball team, I was vulnerable. There were kids who would rather not try out because they didn't want to face their fear of rejection, of being cut. When I decided to walk on to the junior college football team without ever playing high school football, I was extremely vulnerable. There was a very high likelihood that I was going to get cut. Simply stepping in to those situations is courage, is vulnerability. It is the same thing. And it didn't matter that I didn't get cut. When I played in the NFL, I got cut 3 times. But I was out there trying. I was vulnerable. That is courage. And that builds your character. Now, the easy thing to do is anytime you're uncertain, is to shy away or to not do the thing that seems hard, that seems scary, that makes you afraid. If you're afraid of speaking on stage or public speaking, and you'd rather die than to speak in front of 1,000 people, having courage is doing it anyways. That's being vulnerable. Maybe you get booed off the stage. Maybe you get humiliated. But that's better than not trying. So the first thing, and I could talk about this all day, the very first thing to creating that championship mindset is to have courage. And to me, what courage means is to do it anyways. Whatever it is that you don't want to do, you do it anyways. I'll tell you a little story about football. I started playing when I was 8 years old. And every single game I couldn't eat before the game. Literally, the smell of food, I could barely drink anything because I had so many nerves that I felt like I was going to throw up before the games. This was Little League. So my dad would go to the store and buy me these power bars and try to force me to eat them before the games. And I'd always get like half of it down and just want to throw up. And the funny thing about this is that it never changed. When I skipped high school and then I got to my first college games at Snow College, the pregame meal, like I could barely touch it. We'd eat about 4 hours before the game and I would just pick through my food and literally have the same feeling I did when I was 8 years old. When I got to the NFL, pregame meal was 4 hours before. We had a smorgasbord of food. Literally burgers, ribeyes, baked potatoes, pasta, fruit, whatever you wanted, you could have. So we'd be sitting at the table and some of the dudes would literally be having cheeseburger after cheeseburger. And I'm sitting there thinking like, dude, how are you eating? You're making me sick. And I would just pick through my little berries, have a couple of strawberries and be like, fuck it, I can't eat. Like my nerves are so much that if I eat, I'm going to throw up. Worse, I couldn't really drink anything. Like if I drank a Gatorade, I'd just be like full and sloshy. I'd be like, damn, I'm going to throw up. So I'd go into the game starving and thirsty, but I couldn't eat. It was either eat and throw up and feel like shit or just not do it. And then when we were home, we would get in we'd have a police escort for all the players' cars. We would drive into the stadium. All the fans knew exactly when we were going to arrive. So they're cheering and, every day's Halloween in Raiderland. Skeletons and people dressed up, their faces painted. And we're in this little fleet of Maseratis and BMWs and Bentleys. And I had a Chrysler 300 that I bought, was my first car. And I made it look like a Bentley, but I would have my dad drive because I'm like, I don't even want to drive. I just want to get to the damn stadium. And I needed to get that first play in before all this nervousness went away. And I shit you not, every single game I ever played in college and the NFL, I literally had this thought in my brain. John, why the fuck are you doing this? It makes you feel like shit. I hated that feeling before the game. The 4 hours before each game was agonizing to me. And then I'd get in the game and magic would happen. I'd get hit that first time. All at once, that nervousness, that energy was gone, and I could just play. And then some of the positive emotions, scoring a touchdown and, catching a ball with an acrobatic catch, just the highs of the game outweighed that agonizing feeling so much so that I just kept doing it. And my point of this story is if I would have let that feeling control me, I would have never felt the magic of playing in front of 100,000 people, scoring touchdowns, being on the biggest stage there is in professional sports. I was scared since I was 8 years old. I was scared in the NFL. I had courage by showing up and putting myself out there. And what does that mean for you? Whatever it is you want to do, there's something that's inside your heart that's calling you to do something. And the only way that you can truly fail is to listen to that fear, is to ignore your calling. And I think that's why Brené Brown called it the call to courage. When you don't feel like doing something, do it anyways. When you feel uncertain, if there's a chance you can fail, have the courage, be vulnerable, and do it anyways. And that's why, for me, it's the first step to cultivating that championship mindset. Because if it were easy, whatever it is that you want to do, every single person would do it. If it's fitness, every single person would walk around with a six-pack, would be jacked and in shape. If it were easy, everyone would do it. It's not complicated. It's actually not complicated at all. But people's willingness just isn't there. So let's go to C number 2, consistency. Because you can have courage in a moment and do something once, and it's not going to do a damn thing. Consistency is king. Without consistency, you're not going to accomplish anything. So after you cultivate that courage, just understand it's not a one and done thing. You have to be courageous every single day. You have to be consistent every single day. I had to go to practice every single day. I had to go to the games every single day. When it comes to your fitness, being courageous once to go to the gym, or 1 week or 1 month, or even 1 year, isn't enough. You have to be consistent for a lot longer than you think if you ever want to be great. I've learned this the hard way in business over and over again. I think stuff is going to happen faster than it does. And just like you, the longer it takes, sometimes there's that self-doubt. The only way to conquer that is to show up consistently. 80% of the results you're going to get is simply showing up. Because not very many people are willing to keep showing up, to keep having faith day after day, even when they don't see the result. Maybe they've been going to the gym for a month and they can't really see any changes, but they keep showing up day after day after day after day, and then bam, magic happens. It might take a lot longer than you think, but if you don't have consistency, you're never going to win. Which leads me to the third C in cultivating your championship mindset: confidence. And I put confidence third for these two reasons. I can talk about confidence all day. I've talked about it at length in different episodes. So I'm going to keep this one short. But it's third for these reasons. When you're courageous, and when you're consistently courageous, something magical happens to your confidence. You start to trust yourself. You start to be proud of yourself. When you're proud of yourself, you're going to show up confident. So everyone wants to know how we acquire this magic confidence. John, how do you walk into a room with your shoulders back, chest out, and act that certainty out so that everybody can feel it and see it? We can talk about body language, we can talk about posture, but those are quick fixes. Those are little hacks that aren't going to last. You know how you have confidence? You flex your courage muscle and you do it consistently, and you prove to yourself that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, and you do that day after day after day. And that's where the most confident people in the world get their confidence from. It's because they trust themselves. If you say you're going to get up at 4 a.m. to do work and you don't, nobody else knows it but you. And every time that you break a little promise with yourself, you break that confidence just a little bit. But every time you are at integrity with yourself because you do what you say you're going to do, you grow your confidence. So some quick little things that I like to do. Number one, if I tell myself that I'm going to get up early, and I'm not perfect. I'll hit the snooze button some days. And guess what? Those days usually don't go as planned. I'm not as confident. I broke a promise with myself. Number two, I like to remind myself and anchor this confidence. And I do this really simply by taking 2 minutes out of my daily shower and make it ice cold. We talked about the cold showers. Look, there's plenty of people who've been successful in their life without making themselves take an ice cold shower. But for me, as soon as that ice cold water hits, it's like a switch. I'm doing something hard. I'm keeping a promise with myself, and I'm building that confidence. That's it. I anchor that cold shower to doing hard things and to keeping promises with me. Something that nobody else will know. You guys know because I told you on this show, but for months, it was just private. If I'm in the shower and I'm having the conversation, 2 minutes cold, and I don't do it and I make an excuse, that's not a good sign. Those are really little things that snowball into bigger things. Like going to the gym when you should go to the gym. If you have a workout planned, there might be a million excuses that come up, some good, some bad, that take your focus away from that workout and eventually talk yourself right out of doing it. But if you're doing the little things, and then you're keeping the promise to yourself day after day after day to hit that workout, I promise you magic will happen to your confidence. You'll start walking different. You'll start talking different. You'll start having the conversation to yourself differently. Confidence is so important, but you can't have it if you skip the first 2 steps. Courage and consistency are key to building your confidence. And then the 4th C, the last C to cultivating that championship mindset is this: competition. Competition nowadays that word has gotten a lot of bad press. Some people don't believe in competition. Some people use it like it's a bad word. And I don't need you to compete with your neighbor who has a better, nicer car, who has more money, who has a bigger house. I don't give a shit about that. I don't need you to compete with the Instagram girl who spends 3 hours a day at the gym and poses 15,000 different times to get the perfect picture. I don't need you to compete with that shit either. What I need you to compete with is yourself. Every single day, did you get better? Are you better today than you were yesterday? Did you make progress? Are you better next week than you were this week? Are you better next month? Are you better next year than you were last year? What skills did you add? How much strength did you add? How much confidence did you add? Are you making more money or are you making less money? Are your relationships better or are they worse? You see, you have to compete with yourself if you want to win. So when you hear the word competition, I don't need you to compete with anybody else. You can have your own viewpoints about that. I believe in competition. I want to win. In fact, I hate losing more than I love winning. I'm competitive as hell. And you may or may not be like me, but I'll tell you this right now. If you're not willing to compete with yourself, if you're not willing to get 1% better than you did, if you're not willing to get 1% better than you were yesterday, you're never going to win. You're never going to have the success you want. Courage, consistency, confidence, and competition. The 4 cores to cultivating a championship mindset. I want you to think about those. I want you to think about how you can better each one of those 4 C's in your own life to take every aspect of your life to the next level.
Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode of The Show with John Madsen. The greatest compliment that you could give us is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all of your friends. So please go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and review, and then share it online with everyone that you know. Make sure to tag John as well. He loves to hear from listeners of the show. The links for all of his socials and iTunes are in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to engage John for anything related to his coaching, consulting, or programs, please visit johnmadsen.com for everything you'd need to know on how to engage with John offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Show.